the Solomon Islands, and they're, that they got me in the tribal dress. They got the war paint on me. I'm with the Maasai tribes in Kenya. I'm hunting. Like when they let you in without any hesitation or any barriers, just the sharing of moments together, human to human, it's the most beautiful thing. And
Cool. I think we're flowing. Yeah, we're in the flow. What's up, people? Chad here, the Mindful Ways podcast, and I've got good buddy of mine, Mike Graziano, on with us today. Bit of a hot commodity, this cat, in that he's been doing a lot of stuff over the last few years, namely traveling the world, uh, and just completed this epic adventure of his right before COVID really hit, and before kind of the world, shut down, and our really our lifestyle, our normal, our world changed. Um, so I endearingly call Mike the last man to travel around the world. We talked about a lot of this stuff he intended to do before he started doing it. Uh, he built up this massive following along the way, inspired people all over the place as he did it. Um, and I want him to open up a little. I want to crack that can of Graziano open here and learn a little bit about this journey, share it with all of you, explore some of the things that he learned, some of the things, we could all learn from his travels, and and anything else he really wants to share. I think it's going to be a great chat today, buddy. How many countries was it in total that you hit?
193 UN nations.
Yeah, right. How many countries in total? How many countries are we? It's like 200 or
There's
something,
up
right?
to, I mean, if you're talking anyone who,
Says
opened
they're a country basically, right? Like, so you got to put
filing,
some kind of
you
safety.
can filing to start a country is the same as filing to start a corporation. You need a president,
Oh,
vice president, secretary, minimum plot of land, and you're a nation. So it's
well,
if you're
that's
counting
good.
all those, I think you're looking at about 350. The way I saw it
Oh
is,
yeah, okay.
if you have a vote at the United Nations, it's 193. And then you have a couple others like Taiwan,
Right.
Kosovo, and other regions as well that we included as well.
Right. That's amazing, and a good note, because I always joke with friends that I want to buy an island and then just start my own country, and they all laughed at me, but it sounds like you could actually do that.
It's totally possible. And then I'm gonna
You
have to come in
know?
and visit it.
I mean, it'll be a pretty cool place, man. There's no doubt about it. Very, very progressive, I think.
Yeah, man.
So that's
Thanks
pretty
for
good.
having me on the show, man. I'm really excited. We
Yeah.
had a really powerful chat several years ago, which in many ways foreshadowed this whole journey, and I'm excited to see what we come up with this time around.
Yeah. So let's start with that. So, like years ago, you and I, as we like to kind of reminisce on every so often, we're sitting in that booth at a popular restaurant, in Vancouver here, and we're kind of seeking, I think, both of us some inspiration in different ways about, what's next, and what do we care about most, and what do we want to do. Um, Juxtaposed, I guess, against like kind of matrix living, would you say? Like you had a lot of talk about zombies and the like, and kind of zombie culture energy, just zombie movement, right? It's just that kind of like structured rhythm, kind of really corporate, heavy kind of
Well,
lifestyle, which
I
which is, I went through as well. So I mean, we're definitely
yeah.
jamming on that, and talking about
When I
kind of
was in
that.
Thailand, it was that's what inspired this trip around the world. I tell people about how it's cheaper for me to travel the world than to live in Vancouver. Anyone who lives in an urban city can resonate with that in North America. A lot of misconceptions about Thailand and the world at large, and realize that they're all misconceptions and that the world's a good place and I have nothing to fear. And overcame a fear of loneliness, realizing I can make friends with anyone. But going back to your zombie apocalypse comment, what that was for me was my ability to connect with anyone. I'm talking about they don't have to speak English. We can play a game of charades and connect through body language. Um, they can be old, young, from anywhere, and my heart is open, and I can open up theirs, and I love that connection. Where I fell short were the people who were too busy on their phones to see me and to allow me to see them. And so I called those zombies. And there's a little bit of frustration towards the zombies because they were the ones I couldn't connect with. And I was just kind of figuring out how strong the human connection is in the world and for me. And so that was my zombie apocalypse. They called me the zombie hunter at the hostels because we'd find kids on their phones and force them to come on adventures with us and have the best day of their life.
Right. That's awesome. But then this was like a kind of a perspective prior to you starting your journey, and kind of as you're kicking around and traveling a bit and then reaching
I deep down, I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness or maybe a bit of both. I think there's a yin yang to everything, but
Mm,
I wanted to know that I could go to any country in the world. And when I put my fist out for a fist pound, I'm going to get one back. When I
mhm,
put my arms out for a hug, I'm going to receive one back. When I say the words I love you in their language, I'll hear it back.
mm,
I just want to prove the human connection is universal and no religion, no age, no ethnicity, no culture could be a barrier to that.
mm.
It's all love out there. And that's what I want to prove. And that's in the end what I really did prove to myself in a lot of ways.
Hmm. That's that's amazing. And you shared this obviously along the way. I mean, you've got a ton of content there. Videos from like most countries at least, I guess. Maybe all of them.
Yeah, we're
Tons of
still sitting on
experiences.
about 70% content hasn't been released yet. It's just sitting
Yeah.
here. I got my camera sitting literally right here with
Right.
lots of it in it. Got
Yeah.
about 8 terabytes of hard drive up there. So lots of stuff to go through still. We've released about 80 videos, and I kind of we've done some highlight videos showing, 5 seconds in each country, some things we did there. Those are the ones that have gone viral. I'm actually working on a every country in the world video, which I
Mm,
think will be really interesting right now because so many people can't travel. So it'd be a nice reminder about the world that's out there.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to be creating content all the time and always moving and be producing it at the same time.
Mhm.
And then once you get home, you kind of just want to relax anyways. You don't really want to dive too much into it. So yeah, definitely a lot more to come.
Yeah, well, with you, no doubt, dude, because you don't sit still. I mean, it took us like, I think at least a few weeks and probably longer than that to try and kind of line ourselves up because I'm flowing and you're flowing too, right? We don't just like to sit around and really wait for things. So, um, I have no doubt you got a lot coming, right? But unpacking some of this, interesting you're touching on fear. I had similar experiences both with personal fears and personal perceptions that were reinforced as fears on my own kind of journey. Because I left personally shortly after you did, and we went on different trajectories. Um, for your journey, I feel it was more like goal oriented. When you started it, you're like, I'm going all the way around the world, right? Which is amazing. Um,
Or die
my
trying.
journey, for mine, I was like, where's my suitcase? I'm just gonna go right foot, left foot, and
Yeah.
see where it takes me. And what
Yeah.
happens if I just surrender uh, and
Yeah.
go explore it myself?
Yeah.
For my part, my reasons were, fatigue and burnout and a bunch of kind of other things related to the structure that you just referred to. right? Which is always like head in front of the computer, head down, and like, and just, grinding it out every day. So what happens if you let that go? But then the impediment to doing that can definitely be fear-based, right? So when you allude to fear, I'm curious, um, what were your perceptions uh, from a fear-based perspective, like out of the hop, that you kind of had to get over, and
Well, I
that were
mean,
kind of shattered on the journey? Like you set your kind of intention of wanting to unpack this thing and uncover like the commonality of the human spirit and our experience.
yeah, well,
But
you just
I
put on
found
the
on my
news.
journey there was like this threshold you jump through, and you're kind of like,
Yeah,
this is what they say it's going to be, but then that's not what I'm experiencing.
yeah.
So I'm curious how you saw that.
Well, I mean, we're in the end, we're humans, right? We're animals, and when you get warned by your elders not to go and do something, and you turn on the TV and it's telling you not to do something, and even your own nation is telling you not to go certain places, most people wouldn't go. I did, and some of my biggest highlights were in these countries that we were told not to go to. Um,
Mhm.
I
Such
think
as, such as, let's have one off the top, like something that,
Somalia was incredible. North Somalia, a region
right.
called Somaliland. We went to 4,000-year-old paintings on walls. Before the larynx dropped in humans, they couldn't communicate with each other. So what did they do? They used to use paint cow blood onto the wall, and another human would see the picture of a cow and then look at it as a real cow and make the association. So for the first time ever, humans were communicating through blood on walls. That was preserved, and you can still go and visit that today. The first ever signs of quote unquote humans.
Mhm.
Um, Beautiful people. I remember a guy walking down with a huge pile of cash, like this, like just a wheelbarrow of money safely, no issues. We went up and took photos with
Right.
cash with him. We met with some political leaders there. We got invited to stay at beautiful hotels, and I'm like, "This is Somalia. Where's the pirates? Where's all the bloodshed? Where's all the issues?" Now, saying that
Right.
Mogadishu is having some issues, but that's what
Right.
I'm trying to tell you is that you can't categorize an entire nation just like you can't categorize an entire group of people. You're going to have good people and bad people. The good people are going to drastically outweigh the bad people. So you
Mhm.
can't be so naive as to think one nation is more good or more bad than another nation. That's just the misconception, right?
But it
I,
happens.
I
I
really
mean,
enjoyed
it happens all day, like all
all
over the
day. I
place.
really enjoyed the media versus reality, Instagram versus reality. For me, it was media versus reality. I would turn on the TV, see, this World War III type scenario in the country that I'm in. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, that's very far from the reality of what I'm experiencing on a day to day basis.
Hmm.
That happened to me in Israel, that happened to me in Turkey, that happened in parts of the Middle East. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I'm very happy I went forward. I'm not saying to go blindly. I'm saying have a lot of common sense. Surround
Hmm.
yourself with locals that you can trust and who will guide you. And yeah, just kind of do a little bit of research. You don't need to go too crazy, but just be mindful of what to do and what not to do, being sensitive of culture, aware of areas that aren't safe to visit. And then otherwise, the world's your oyster. Go have some fun and learn a thing or two.
There's also great like hostel channels, right? And flows of travelers.
Mhm.
And I know you tapped into that quite a bit,
Yeah,
as I did.
hostels are good for solo travelers because you show up only to be surrounded by other solo travelers, and you make your crew, build your crew, and then go on
And
adventures
everybody kind of
together.
knows, they're sharing the insights, so everybody kind of knows where the paths are and like things to
Yeah,
see.
and then other
They help.
parts. Yeah, and then another network is couch surfing. Now that's a beautiful network. It's people who, when they travel, they want to stay on couches, quote unquote couches. So I've never actually stayed on a couch. There's always have extra bedrooms, and sometimes we're
Mhm.
staying in beautiful mansions. Um, it's funny. when you think couch surfing, you think of, you know, the
The
lower
pull-out
end of
futon, the
of
pull
living.
yeah, the pull-out futon
It's
that some guy,
ironic. Most people on couch surfing are the ones who have enough disposable income that they
right?
don't need to rent out other spots in their house, and they enjoy uh, having visitors all the time. One woman in Tunisia said it best. She said, "I don't have a passport strong enough to travel the world, so I host people to stay at my home, and that's my version of traveling the world, is
Mm-hmm.
experiencing and meeting all these people. The world's coming to her." And I
Mm-hmm.
found that to be really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Resort concept in some respect, in that when I was younger and this hair was a lot shorter and this beard was not around, I once worked at a resort in exotic location myself,
Mhm.
and that's what I felt. Through that experience is another way to kind of experience the world without going everywhere. Is that the world does come to you, and you do learn a ton from that as well. Pretty interesting, just that kind of polarity between the presentation of these regions and then
Mhm.
what's actually going on, on the ground. I found that as well when I was in Mexico. Mexico tends to get a bunch of press in a certain frame, I think. And
Mhm.
also Mexico, you feel it's just going to be hot and dry everywhere. And then you get into it, and I'm traveling all the way through it, and I'm like, this is a beautiful place in so many ways, and the people are fantastic, and it's just like it was quite a different experience for
Yeah,
me.
I also have to be aware and mindful of some privileges I was given. I'm a tall
Sure.
white man, blonde
Right.
hair, blue eyes. I
Yeah.
have a film crew following me from behind. I have
Sure.
all these followers online. I was given some sort of special treatment, and I'm aware of that.
You're
Uh,
starting to get kind of as you went, did you feel that momentum pick up speed and like that ball start to roll ahead of you a little bit?
I would say part of the fact we're showcasing the best of each nation
Right.
gave us special treatment because everyone's like, well, we want to put ourselves in the best light. I would
Sure,
say,
of course.
the privileges I'm born into had some effect. I'd say there's certain first impression um, consequences there, but I'd say underneath it all, you just have a ton of curiosity, respect, and love from my fellow humans, and I do think it's a reflection of me. The excitement I get connecting with them resonates. When a friend of mine who I meet in Australia, I said, well, everywhere I went, people tried to fight me. I was always getting punched in the face, and
Really?
why is the world so mean to me? And I don't have an answer. I would just say, take a look in the mirror. What is it that you're reflecting that makes them so aggressive toward you? Because all I see is love and happiness and respect, and I believe it's a reflection of you. So if you're not happy with your world, if you're not happy with your surroundings, I think you need to make some changes among your immediate circle, because you are your five closest friends, five closest people. But then
Mhm.
also take a good hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is it that I'm portraying, and what can I change to have a better life and live in a better world? It all starts with you.
Mm-hmm. How am I treating myself? How am I treating others? You know, how would I like them to treat me?
Right.
I definitely believe that. Anyone who knows me definitely knows that, that's something I live and breathe. That people are a mirror, right, of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thanks for being here, bro. You're a pretty good spirit, right, to keep company with for sure, and very social and quite charismatic, right? So, smashing through those cultural barriers to go and run up to somebody you don't know and invite a big hug or something. I
Yeah.
saw a lot of that in your photography and
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
videos and stuff.
I love the photos. I love the photos where I'm so immersed that I'm one of them. They put
Fully.
I'm in a tribe in Fiji or the Solomon Islands, and they're, that they got me in the tribal dress. They got the war paint on me. I'm with the Maasai tribes in Kenya. I'm hunting. Like when they let you in without any hesitation or any barriers, just the sharing of moments together, human to human, it's the most beautiful thing. And if I can capture that, I think that's what people love to see, you know?
Well, and what about them, right? The Maasai tribe or any of these regions or cultures you crossed through. You said, they really wanted to showcase themselves in a positive light.
Mhm.
Um, how did the opportunity for them to do that and their experience with you in doing that, I mean, how did it impact them? What do you think you were doing to serve them in holding space and offering them that voice?
Well, I
You
think we
know,
were holding video cameras. We were working with Discovery Channel. We were working with TripAdvisor. We
right.
had we had over 1 million people tuned in. Like
Well, that's obviously like that's
created
like
a spotlight.
fundamental tangible weight. But what do you feel is the like kind of what is the internal satisfaction? What is the internal kind of gratification for them in being able to do it? Whether you had one or a million, is there like
Yeah, again,
you're holding space? You're holding space for that. I feel.
I don't know how they treat other people. All I see is my world through my eyes. But what I
Right.
see when I'm there is nothing but sheer excitement and invitation. I mean, I'm playful. Like I'm the first one to I'll be taking off my clothes, putting on paint, drinking kava, my face is numb. Like I'm in. I'm walking on fire in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
I'm
God.
I burned tribal tattoos on my arm. Like I'm all in without any
Right.
hesitation because my love of life. But I
Are they
think,
burned? Wait, but
yeah,
hang
I
on. Are
got
they
one right
burned? Are they on
here.
your arm? What,
Yeah.
how hard is
I
this
see
to show me?
it.
Well, I mean, don't tease a guy with things like
It's
that. I
nothing.
mean,
It's nothing crazy, but
no, but dude,
oh, here.
if we
Wait.
can see it,
Yeah, I mean, so you can see that right there. There's the big
yeah,
scar.
okay,
It's about an inch wide. So what they did is this is back in Kenya. They called me a lumniak, which was Maasai for the lucky one.
yeah,
And what
dope.
they did is I stick out my arm and they put a piece of sage on my arm and light it with the embers.
Wow,
As it's burning, they say a true warrior keeps his arm still as it burns through his skin. A weak warrior will shake it off. So I would sit there, and as it's burning, they did a tribal dance and, kind of waited to see what would happen. And then
dude.
it burns right through, and it's a slow pain, and then it starts, really coming in. And you just hold it, until the chief says it's okay, and then he'll flick it off. And then that evening, we sacrificed a goat. They put their knees on the goat's lungs and not allowing it to breathe. And within 2 minutes, the goat was gone, just like that. They cut open the goat's neck and we drink blood right from its. Right, they wouldn't waste a drop of blood because they didn't want to waste a single part of the goat. Everything gets used from the fur to the meat to the bone
Right.
marrow. Everything gets used. Not a millimeter of waste.
No, it's very
Um,
sacred, right?
we were drinking fermented honeycomb that night, feeling a little bit buzzed from that. And yeah, man, like those moments you'll never forget. Those moments will stick with you for life. Like those are deathbed moments. We'll call it that.
Dude,
And
that's a huge blessing. That's a very like, that's a it's a big honor to be treated that way and to be granted that rite of passage. I'm sure. Uh,
yeah, so I mean, again, it's kind of like I don't know how they treat other people, but I can only imagine that once again, it's a reflection. I don't believe the world happens to me. I think I can create this. I can bend reality a little bit, and that's my mindset. And so I invite other people to examine their own mindset as well to make sure that life is happening to them, but it's happening by them, and they have a lot more control than they might think.
I'm just letting that that thought breathe for a sec, because it's profound, and you know, it's a spiritual kernel, right? In that it's about, you know, the self being the source of power and of creation. Um, it's great to hear you speak like this, because we haven't ever really explored your connection on this level with these experiences.
And I had dark moments. It was not all raindrops and
Of
lollipops.
course, of
And
course.
I've had camera gear stolen from me, not from people, but from my own team members. I've had
Okay.
sponsorships bail out on me. When we needed them the most. I had, we had a lot of stuff go wrong, and in the beginning, I made this promise: either I do or die. Either I go to every country by age 30, or I die trying. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Set fire to the boat behind me. There's nothing. There's no plan B. There's nothing. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember a few moments in the dark times of this trip, and I remember obviously emotional and upset, and maybe saying, well, maybe this is the universe telling me to stop. There's too many things going wrong. There's too much resistance. I'm obviously not in flow. But
Mm-hmm.
then I have always asked myself one last question. And the question is, hey, Mike, are you still breathing?
Hmm.
And if the answer is yes, then keep going.
Hmm.
And even in the final year of my trip was really rough. I basically put off all the hardest countries and regions in the world to go to, Middle East and parts of Central Africa. And it was really rough, and I didn't want to keep going. And people said, Mike, you should be enjoying travel, take your time, stop creating these deadlines and guidelines. You should be just
Right.
listening to your heart and stopping, slowing down. Don't try and impress anyone. And I took all that into consideration. But then in the end, that voice was saying, are you breathing? Then keep going. Are you breathing? Then keep going. And lo and behold, I got home. You witnessed it yourself, February 27th. Not even 10 days later, the whole world shut down because of COVID.
Yeah.
So you don't understand these internal voices until you look back on them. You can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking backward. And so this internal voice didn't make sense at the time, but looking back on it, it made perfect sense,
Yeah.
right?
You have to trust it. I call it the great joke of the universe, right? Because you have to keep leaping.
Mm-hmm.
You have to hear that and then keep leaping, even though you don't see the net,
Mm-hmm.
but the net
My
keeps
my way of
going up.
saying it, my favorite saying, which is the same tone, is follow the invisible into the unknown.
Yeah, that's good. I dig it. Much
Mm-hmm.
more, visually original, I think. It's pretty profound. But yeah, exactly. Um, and when you were facing some of that dark challenge, if we follow the same philosophy, that those experiences are still a part of you,
Mm-hmm.
reflecting back to you, was there anything in particular, which, let me add the caveat, you don't need to accept my suggestion there if you don't want to, but I would suggest maybe that's, the case. Um, and of course, if you know my journey, I've had my dark experiences and similar hurdles and stuff, which I'll talk about all in kind of good time, the unpacking of my own story. But for you, was there anything like in particular that you took away from those experiences when you're in those dark moments that you learned kind of about yourself? I really like the "Are you breathing? Okay, keep going," um, as like a methodology to move through it. Is there something that you really kind of learned that you feel people in general should know or learn or be aware of with respect to moving through challenges? I mean, and let me put it in context. Here we are in a major kind of global, challenge, right? Um,
Well, if you
we're
want to
going through hard
appreciate health,
times.
you want to appreciate your health, get dengue fever in the middle of the Pacific Islands and sleep
Yeah.
for 5 days straight and, unable to leave your bed. Or get you want to appreciate your health, get heat stroke and strep throat at the same time in, uh, what is it, Jinja. That's right next to the Nile River in Uganda, 4 hours away from a hospital with 104-degree fever. One more degree, I think you start to get brain damage,
Wow.
and you don't you don't appreciate your health until it's taken from you quickly. Um, and so I obviously I thank myself. Think about it. I mean, think about trillions of cells and neurons, protons, organisms flowing in perfect harmony, just to give you this moment. Like, think about how much of a phenomenon you are.
Mhm.
All the things replicating, duplicating, growing, mutating. It's crazy to appreciate. So I like to meditate on that and appreciate that. Another thing is, I used to take it personally when people would leave the journey. Reflect on it, saying, what did I do wrong? You know, um,
Because people, to put in context for people who don't know, you did this in a couple of phases.
yeah,
So like you do a big block and
yeah.
then you,
We do entire continents each year.
right.
So it
And
was
there were,
6 years,
yeah,
basically 6 continents, more or less.
right. And there were some people of like you started on your own and then a bit of a team joined you, I think can help
Yeah,
like
started on
content,
my
stuff
own
like that.
and finished on my own. I had a guy from Switzerland who was there with me in the bitter end, but people came and left. I used to take it personally. And then I've realized that life's a journey. People are going to kind of hike with you or journey with you for a bit, and then they're going to go their own way.
But then,
We're all going on our own path. So don't take it
right.
personally. People come and go in and out of your life.
What, what,
That's
what was the part that you took personally? What was the part that kind of like,
For example, Natalia Agnes, famous photographer from Vancouver, she left the trip. Our goal was for her to be the first woman on record to go to every country, and she left. So I
right?
said, what did I do wrong? Why did Natalia leave early? What could I have done better? And in the end, Natalia still reflects on the trip in a positive way. And it was a big catalyst for her, and changed a lot of her in her life. And so
Mm-hmm.
once again, looking back on it, it all happened exactly the way it was supposed to. And that's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's happening exactly the way it's supposed to, not just for you, but for everyone else. And therefore, people come and go. And you just got to not take it personally. Just know that you're on your journey. You're born alone. You're gonna die alone. You're gonna meet a couple of cool people along the way. You're gonna have some exciting times, and that's life.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. It's good insight, man. I think this is valuable stuff. You talked about, and that's the intention, obviously, of where everything's coming from with sharing this podcast and video segments is what have you, and what have you is sharing these types of insights to just help other people, find their own inner compass and find their way and learn how to navigate. I think from a mindful place, right, their lives in a way that um, is valuable for them, is nurturing for them, maybe isn't so volatile or painful, or like just kind of like keeping things in a cool experiential way and learning, understanding about what we're doing here and where we all come from and what we're all capable of.
Yeah, I'd also add one more thing in there, and I'm only noticing how much I do this now in comparison to others in my life,
Mm,
especially after I've settled down. But I'm a much more of a doer than a thinker. I don't really think too much. I just do and see what happens. I'm a trial and error type of guy. Just go
mm,
with the flow. I we used to have really strict plans in the beginning, and in the end, we just showed up. And so I think in life you got to, especially now I'm building a business, and I've had the most successful 30 days, first 30 days of the business, and the most successful 30 days of my life in terms of finance and accomplishment. And it didn't come from business plans. It didn't come from stars aligning. It didn't come from anything. It just came from doing and learning as you do, or as they say, jumping off a cliff and building a parachute on the way down. Um,
Mhm.
it's just, you have to just take that leap of faith. The first step, the first leap is 1,000 times harder than any other step in the process. So just know that going into it and take that leap as fast as possible.
Well, when you did this, I know from my travels, I get the question, how did you pay for that, or how did you finance that? And talking about that leap, I know when you started, you just basically walked up to your nearest mountaintop, right? And just told the world, like, I'm going around the world, right? And most people are like, sorry, what did he just say? Like, okay. I
So
mean,
you gotta remember,
a
I
lot
did.
of people, right? Let's be fair. A lot of people like pat you on the back or pat you
Yeah.
on the top of the head and say like, "Go get them," and then you're in it and you're doing it.
No, there
So how?
was some chatter 6 years ago, Chad, and I'm sure you may have heard a thing or two, but people were like, "This guy's lost his marbles." First off, this was 6 years ago. There were no content creators, there were no influencers, there were no digital nomads. None of that existed. There was only about three or four other people doing travel content on YouTube that I had found. So we were like really early on.
Right.
And yeah, of course, people thought I was a little bit crazy. And we went and raised $10,000 in Kickstarter, and people came through the woodwork,
Okay.
donated in order to get their name on the credits of the show or to be sent our DVDs. We were sending DVDs back then. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and you had that first, and then we got sponsors. I got, Hostel World. I tweeted the fifth richest man in Ireland named Ray Nolan, who sold Hostel World for $300 million, then started Skyscanner. Tweeted him, "Hey Ray, going to every country in the world, need your help." He responded, "Hey Mike, how can I help?" One
Amazing.
introduction led to another, and we got sponsored. Went down to Flight Center headquarters, marched in there, asked for 5 minutes of the CMO's his time, and next thing you know, led to a second meeting, third meeting, and then we got free flights. Marched down to another sponsor, Monster Cat, a music label down in Vancouver, and asked for help, and they said yes. So it's kind of like an ask and you shall receive. Have to have courage to ask for big things and gratitude to receive it, and
It's awesome.
be mindful of what other people want out of what you have to offer and connect all the dots. We created a shopping list of content that companies wanted from around the world, and were much cheaper to pay us than to hire their own independent film crews. So
Hmm.
we fill out the shopping list of content, everyone gets their content, and we get a free trip around the world. That's not a bad trade-off.
Not at all. No. And you've still got all your rights for
Yeah.
the content too, right?
Yeah.
So you license that out, or they
Yeah.
sponsored
Yeah.
you
It's
want
funny seeing my
right?
stuff. I don't know if you watch Goop Labs with Gwyneth Paltrow.
I have yet to.
It's a show on the pretty famous show on Netflix, and in the episode where they do a psilocybin mushroom experience in Jamaica, all the drone footage is my footage actually. So it's funny to be
Oh,
watching
okay.
shows on Netflix and stuff and seeing your content.
Wow. So Goop, or I guess who's behind Goop, they sponsored kind of a leg of your journey, and
No,
you.
no, no. This is post trip. I have a content distributor who's licensing
There.
it. I just get paid a check. It's royalty every time someone uses it.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
So for any of the entrepreneurs listening, right? You know, no slouch, Mike Graziano here. That's that's cool. And now, do you have plans on putting like a full package, together on this story? You said a couple things earlier, but some kind of a doc, a narrated
We
Graziano doc about some of these
We've
passions
been
and themes would be
entertaining
pretty cool.
a doc especially now. I mean, the last
Yeah.
man in every country, like what? There's something there. Um,
Yeah, dude, it's huge.
I
I
think.
feel.
I mean,
I
we
mean,
have
let me qualify why I think
you
so.
know 6
You
different
know,
years of content, different quality, different people on the in the crew, different storytelling. I mean, we it was an up and down, but I wonder if we can tie it all together somehow and tell a beautiful story. I think with all the streaming companies out there, not just Netflix, Disney, HBO, I feel like we could probably find a streaming deal for it.
well, if they're listening, Mike's open to a
Give me a
streaming
call. You
deal.
never find
Hey, you never know who's listening on these things, right? So, Mike's contact info will definitely be dropped in here, and you can reach out, and why wouldn't you? And I think uh, it's a unique perspective you offer because I feel the way we're connected through social media and you know right around the world, everybody gets instant headlines, right? But people are looking through or looking at it, I'll say, through a localized lens to comment on something um, being framed or that is occurring on the other side of the world.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who haven't been there to actually provide balanced perspective or balanced commentary on what that is or what might actually be um, going on the ground in Somalia or pick a different region. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So having done this yourself with such a huge swath of the planet, I feel it just brings such a valuable, I don't know, lens in a really holistic, global way
Mhm.
um, to contribute to that conversation. That's what I feel. And so I don't understand necessarily, or I'm not fully clear to the full depth you may or may not be aware of your potential to contribute or influence from that place. But I definitely pick that up in you. And
Thank you.
obviously hold space, bro, and like huge support for that because those are big pants to wear
Well,
at the same time. You
I'll
know what
tell
I
you,
mean?
I'll reflect on what I'm learning now. Um,
Yeah.
Learned a lot, quite a bit since I've finished the trip around the world, and I'm sure everything's connected, every lesson's connected. But I'm stepping into. There's a saying by Zig Ziglar, and that is, you can have anything you want in this world as long as you help others get what they want first.
Mm-hmm.
The ambitious yet humble servant, helping others get what they truly want. I'm stepping into full servitude. My story, in many ways, has come to an end, and now my next chapter is to help other people tell their story, help them navigate this crazy, congested social media world we live in, where you have news, COVID, BLM. I mean, news taking a life of its own, really. How do you get your message heard today? And specifically, if you're a mindful person or brand doing some important work for the world, how do you get your message heard? So, stepping into that, I'm stepping into abundance, not just for myself, but for anyone who comes in contact with me. Stepping into generosity, about not always thinking what's in it for me, but starting to understand the value of giving unconditionally. I like to always think of the sun that gives us all life, since the beginning of time, literally. And, you know, it gives and nourishes and never wants anything in return. And it shows up the next day, literally. It determines what is a day. And, I want to try and be the sun in people's lives. And that's what I'm stepping into. That's the next phase.
That's dope, bro. You're a light. You're a light, my man. If you ever need anything, obviously you reach out, right? I mean, that's like I think a no-brainer. I think you know that, but holding space for that for sure. You know, and I know we could go on about all this for hours, and
We
we
will
will,
go on.
and we will, right? Some of it on here, some of it elsewhere. But I will also honor your time, right, and the space you've held to kind of share some of this with those in my world and those that I'm connected to. Um, so kind of like, capping some of this off, pulling it all together. Um, is there anything else you want to share about your journey? Is there anything else that you think from your journey that the world should, be aware of, that the world should kind of take away from what you've learned in this, that you'd like the world to, you know, to know, to recognize, to appreciate, right? I mean, again, I like to put things in context. Uh, Kind of a hell of a year we're having globally. I don't think anybody really had this right on their bingo card, to use the cliche of how this year was going to go. I definitely did not, and it's presenting challenges for many, many people. Right, people are trying to find their way through everything that's coming up. Um, and some of that's been uniting, and I think some of that's been divisive. You have this globally experienced lens
Mm.
looking into the eyes and into the hearts of so many different types of cultures across the world, and then obviously, as you've mentioned, in your own. Anything, just holding space for you here, whatever comes up. Anything else you'd like to share that you feel we should all hear?
Yeah, I think as much as we want to pretend the world's going to go back to the way it was, I think it's fundamentally changed. I think consumer behaviors changed, travel, the way we work, relationships, the online space, um, security, the human connection. I think everything's changed. And I don't care if you're $1 billion company or you're in your garage trying to figure this out. We're all back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
We're all navigating this new world. I think 6 years ago, I stuck a stake in the ground saying that I'm going to travel the world and film it, and I'm going to inspire other people to do it. Um, Back then, you wouldn't see many people claiming that. Now, it's a different story. I feel a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are country counting and doing that. Not to say that I deserve, all the credit for that. I think that was just a shift in consumer behavior and all that. But I would say start to make some predictions in the future. Start to stick your stake in things that you believe in, things you're willing to fight for, you're willing to die for. Once you're willing to die for something, then you're willing to truly live. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think you need to ask for more. If you're asking for nothing, that's one choice. And your world of infinite asks, nothing is just one option.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to have a clear headspace and remove, the negative from your world, and remember that your world's a reflection of you, and just really step into that. You're allowed to be afraid, but as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you're still breathing, keep going. And understand how privileged you are to be holding a North American passport, Canada, US, or if you're somewhere else in the world, realize how privileged you are to have $1 in your bank account. Not many people have that. Um, it's crazy the world we live in, and there's so much you can give. And many of us are ahead in this race of life. And the goal is not to win the race, the goal is not to win the race when you have a head start. The goal is to realize you have a head start, stop, turn around, and start helping other people get caught back up.
Mm.
So, I guess that's the final message.
Wow. Cool. Thank you, brother. Where can we find you? Where can my viewers and listeners and my community connect with you, to ask you more questions, license your video content, any of these things? Where does
Yeah.
somebody find Mike Gratz?
Online, global degree, visit every country to graduate. We still have that channel. You can also start a new firm called Mindful Media, where we help mindful people and brands get big press and some of the biggest press in the world. Um, just find me on Instagram, global degree, shoot me a message, and excited
That's
to,
just at Global Degree, yeah?
yeah, excited to connect and help any way I can.
Right on, bro. Well, I appreciate you jumping on and sharing some of this with us. It's some very cool insights that you've offered, and we're going to do this again probably because you and I always have lots to talk about. But wanted to take this snapshot and explore it and give you an opportunity to share some of these stories and insights. So
Yeah, man, thank you. Thank you for being you, showing up so authentically, being so pure and seeing people for who they truly are, man. I see you seeing others and I appreciate you a lot. So thank you.
thanks, bro. That's nice. Thanks, man. Well, cool. Mike Gratz, brother from another mother. You heard it here first. He just traveled around the world. As I would suggest, the last guy to travel around the world before all of this started to go down. And we're
I
not
hope not.
sure.
I hope someone listening to this beats my record.
Hey, of course.
Let's do it.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're just not sure when that's all going to kind of open up to, be able to be done. But of course, rooting for anyone to do it. Mike's there. Connect with him. I'm Chad McMillan. This is Chad McMillan Mindful Ways podcast, and on video channel, obviously YouTube as well. What's up, YouTube fam? That's today's app. Smashed it. Thanks, Mike. Thanks to you all. Hit me up anytime when you're looking for me at Chad McMillan and chadmick.com. And we will hit you again with another app soon, and we will talk to you all later.